But when I got to Dallas, I was replacing Steve Nash. So I thought in my mind. So the perception was I was brought into Dallas to replace Steve Nash. Now, if anybody knows Steve Nash, he's a pass first, pure point guard, one of the best to ever do it. So imagine that. Fitting my shoes into those big shoes, that's not going to work. So what happened? Lost my identity of who I was and who made me valuable. But again, talking to Avery Johnson every day, him coaching me, him mentoring me. It wasn't until one day I walked in his office and he said, look at this. He was looking at the stat sheet, looking at the film, and he was like, okay, 12 points, 6 assists, 5 turnovers. He was like, what are you doing? I said, man, well, I thought you wanted me to get everybody involved, kind of like Steve Nash. He said, stop right there. I'm going to stop you right there. You're Jason Terry. That's what we want to see. That's what I want out there every night.
Well, welcome back to the interview series, everyone. It is Matt Phillips, and today I have a very special guest that I get to introduce you to here in a minute. It is Jason the Jet Terry, a man that I watched play growing up, both at the University of Arizona and during the NBA. And you get to hear from him today. We get to climb into his mind, his mindset a little bit based on the questions that I get to ask him today. Now, a little bit about Jet, that if you don't know him, you need to look him up and become familiar with his career and what he's doing now. But he is currently an assistant coach with the Utah Jazz. And what's more fascinating is he made this transition from player to coach. So after a 19-year career in the NBA with the Hawks, the Dallas Mavericks, Celtics, Nets, Rockets, and Bucks, he made that transition. We're going to dive into that today. But, NBA champ in 2011, national champ with Arizona back when he was in college, originally hails from Seattle, Washington. Jet, welcome to the interview. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Anytime.
This is great. Chad Forcier obviously hooked us up and connected us, and Chad's a good guy and has nothing but good things to say about you. So, man, to get to pick your brain is an absolute honor for me.
Oh, yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, Chad's a good friend of mine. Been knowing him since my days at Franklin High School in Seattle, Washington. And, over our years, we've battled against each other. Now we're fighting with each other to try to get the Utah Jazz to a good state of mind, a good place in the NBA.
That is so good. Well, and there's so many questions I want to ask you, right? Because, the first thing that sticks out to me about just you, and again, I remember watching you play, is you had a very long career in the NBA. And not a lot of individuals have that longevity in career. What do you think made you stick around so long in the league where others kind of fell off and didn't have that long career?
One, you got to be blessed and you got to be fortunate to, have your good health. I think that was the most important thing. A lot of guys' careers were cut short because, due to injury or, things of that nature. I think, I took for the most part care of my body, even though my frame and stature was one of the smallest guys out there on any given night, 6'2", 185. There's not many of those guys around. And so, I played the game, fast, but I also played the game to my skill strength and skill set. And that was, stayed on the perimeter when I had to, but never was scared and fearless to go inside and go up top on the big guys when I needed to. But minimizing hits, not taking all the contact that a lot of these other guys take was something that I had to do throughout my career. I think that gave me longevity. Also, my work ethic. I had a strict routine. My routine was something that I carried with me from my junior year in college all the way through my 19-year career. So that took tremendous sacrifice, but it was something that I knew I had to do to play at an elite level and, to get the longevity that I was searching for. So that's kind of the gist of it. Also,
yes.
Support system. Obviously, my wife and my kids, I have 5 daughters, along the way understood, look, basketball is what's keeping the lights on, and we have to do what we need to do to support you so you can support us. And I think that support system also allowed me to play as long as I did.
That's huge. Well, so I want to talk about a couple things. One, on the routine side of things.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about that as athletes, right? You and I play different sports, but the routines kind of rule throughout, right? We're told like have a great routine, whether it's pre-game, post-game, in-game, all these different areas of life, right? When you're having an off day, what are you doing with that time? If you don't mind, walk me through a little bit and our listeners, like, what were the components of that routine when you talk about having such an extensive routine that required sacrifice at some points? How did you kind of set that up? Because I think we can learn from kind of what you did.
Well, for me, I knew in season, like there was a certain amount of shots that I had to make every day, right, to stay sharp, to make sure, when my number was called, I was able to stand and deliver, regardless of what the defense was doing, or even regardless of how I felt physically, even mentally, some nights. So that routine was rigorous. It was every night. It was at home. It was on the road, and I stuck to it. So, like, for instance, if we're on a road trip and we get into a city, I made sure the equipment manager and one of the coaches or one of my guys that I have train me was there to assist and work me out right when we got into that city. Before I went to dinner, before I went out and hung out, get that done first. If it was home the night before, it was easy. I drive like 7:30 to the arena, get my work in, and then I would be free to do whatever I want to do the rest of the night. But that was priority. I knew I had to have it done. If I did not do it for whatever reason, I just wasn't right the next day or the next game. It just didn't feel right, and I was off. So mental health, physical health, all that played a part, but it all started with that routine.
How did you stick to it? Because a lot of times we get in that and we know we should do something. I work with a lot of athletes where, I know I should do that, a little extra work or get some number of shots or swings or whatever it is. But like the mindset piece, I think is still like, how do you overcome when I'm sure you felt like I don't feel like doing this right now, or there's 5 other things I want to do. How did you, like, what was the self-talk like where it was just like non-negotiable, we're doing it, I don't care what else I'm thinking?
I think I knew for me, because I wanted to stand and deliver for my teammates, for the organization, whichever team I played for, I knew for me to be at my best, this is the routine I had to do. And I would not sacrifice anything. I would have to, get it done. I mean, at all costs, because at the end all is if I did my job and I started my role, then we'd have team success. And so I didn't want to let my teammates down. And I felt like if I did not partake in my routine, part of that is you're not doing your job. You're letting your guys down. And I just couldn't look them in the eyes knowing that I hadn't done my part. Like, if we win or lose, that's fine and dandy. The team was better than us. But it wasn't going to be because I didn't do my part. I didn't take care of my business and get myself ready to perform on those nights.
I love that. I love that because it's kind of that team first mentality, right? And then I played my part within it.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a particular coach or that imparted that upon you, or is that just something you grew up with, Jet?
Well, it kind of both. Now that you mention it, I mean, one, I was raised by a single parent mother, one of 10. I'm the second oldest, and that was kind of her deal. Like, she always was there. She always delivered for us. On nights we didn't think we had food coming in, lo and behold, she'd show up. It might not have been at the time we thought we were going to eat, but you always ate. So, kind of taking that, instilling it into kind of what I believed in my core values. It was just like sacrifice for the betterment of the team. And then when I got to college, I easily could have started for 3 years of my career. I went for 4, but it wasn't until my senior year until Lute Olson said, okay, you've sacrificed for long enough. Now I'm going to give you the keys. We go as far as you take us. Senior year, I played 39 minutes a game, was player of the year in the conference and in the nation, and ended up getting drafted like the 10th pick. So, from that day forward, I'd never second guess what I needed to do to be ready for my team and to deliver.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, and I imagine you played with other players who did not have that level of commitment or intensity or just that work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you best kind of like work with those types of players? Was it just that mindset of like, I'm going to show up my best and I can't control them? Or how did you work through or try to motivate like teammates around you who maybe just aren't doing the same thing?
Well, something that's helped me now as a coach and that I had to realize early on in my coaching career is that, everybody's journey is different. I can't put my expectations for me and project them out onto someone else. Like, I don't know what drives you. But if I do know what drives you, then I can better help you and give you a blueprint to how I did it. But I'm not going to tell you do it like this because it might not work for you. And some guys, it just doesn't. So it doesn't bother me. Some guys don't have the work ethic. Some guys do. Some guys are God-given, naturally gifted, and don't have to do the routine, the rigorous routine that I had to obtain the career that I did. And so, for me, it's like, what makes you tick? What makes you work? Let me help you and aid you and assist you in that. I never shun upon anyone. I don't look down and say, oh, I did it this way. You're not going to make it because you don't do it the way I did it. Like that. That's just not me. And I don't think that approach works at all. So again, control the controllables. Worry about what you control. And if there's something that you can help somebody and give them a bit of advice along the way and they take it and run with it, cool. And if they don't, I don't wish bad at all.
Yes. I'm a big fan of control the controllables, right? And influence. But I love that side of it. Kind of your mentality of team first, doing what you do, taking care of yourself, and especially mentally, just making sure you're doing the work so you show up, you feel prepared for whatever's about to happen.
Yeah, I can't help you if I can't help myself. So if I'm not right, there's no way I'm going to help you get right. So you got to look at you first. And then I think that's the gist of it.
I love that. Well, is there, playing in the NBA for so long, right? And especially playing at such a high level, meaning you're getting the playoffs consistently, you're winning national championships, you're competing for just the championships, right? There comes a lot of pressure with that. And pressure to perform, pressure to play in front of a big crowd, maybe even sometimes internal pressure you put on yourself. Talk to me a little about how you view like pressure. And did you have a moment where you felt like that pressure and how did you deal with it to overcome, because it can sometimes be paralyzing if we're not careful, but how do you view pressure and how did you overcome it when you felt overwhelmed by it?
Well, I think a lot of times us as athletes, even human beings in life, it is the perception of what people think about us, right? And how other people feel about us. But it's not even that. It's more about what you feel about you, and you apply unnecessary pressure to yourself. So like you're saying, those elements around you that you can't control. You can't control the crowd. You can't control what people are saying in the media. You can't control what's on social media. But what you can control is your performance. Did you prepare? Did you put yourself in a position to be ready to handle those adverse situations? And if you've done so, you can live with the results, because failure is a part of success. You would not succeed unless you have not witnessed some kind of failure along the way. And so if you take that type of mindset, then it will help you when those times get adverse. And for me, that's how I always played it. I mean, I love when people say, oh, this is pressure. No, pressure is my mom trying to figure out how she's going to feed 10 kids with one job. Like, ain't no greater pressure than that, making sure your loved ones are fed. And so for me, it's always been a situation, especially in basketball. Like every arena I went to, the goals were 10 feet. The court was 94. Like that never changed. So how I worked, how I prepared in those sessions I'm telling you about, I put myself in those type of situations. Now, you didn't have the crowd yelling and saying whatever, but in those type of moments, the best players, they block out the outside noise and they focus in on the task at hand. And that's kind of what you have to do in life, whether it's sports, whether it's job searching, seeking out, or whether it's your purpose, it's your life's mission. Block out the outside noise, hone in on the goal, the target, and then get it accomplished.
I love that. You seemed like you had a lot of fun when you played.
Love it. Every minute.
and you can tell. And anybody who watches, go back and watch film, right? You look like you're enjoying yourself, right? You're scoring and doing all these things and helping the team.
I mean, I loved every aspect of the game. I mean, from pregame warm-ups to pregame meal to training to working out to fan engagement. Like, if you watch me, I was just as big as a fan as any fan that ever came to watch me play. Like, I'm engaged. I'm in the moment. The tactical part of it, the X's and O's,
Yes.
just the competition, the rivalries. Something that you don't see now in our game, especially at the highest level, but even in college now, you don't really see the rivalries like you used to see. But that part of it, man, I'll never lose that. I mean, I loved it, every minute of it.
Where's that love come from?
Yeah, I think it just comes from, growing up in Seattle, being a guy that was an underdog, being raised by like the Seattle Sonics. Like, my first PE teacher was Slick Watts, a great Seattle legend. And like every day he had these great basketball stories he would tell. And I would like envision myself like in a Sonic uniform and just playing out some of those great Sonic moments from back in the day. I think that's where it all started for me. And it's never changed.
I think the appreciation of the game is so important. Do you believe like you have to have a love of the game, like true love, like you're excited about it to even be able to play it through high school, collegiately, and professionally to sustain that?
Yeah, I think anything you do in life, right, to be successful at it, you have to love it and enjoy it. Because if you don't, you're not going to give your all to it. And to be successful and to be elite at the highest level, you have to be in love with it. And you have to, yeah, it has to be day to day and it has to be genuine. And I think you get the greatest appreciation out of things when you truly love it.
Yes. Well, I agree 100%. So one thing I have athletes ask me a lot is they look for tactics, right? Of like, okay, I'm having a bad day. Maybe I'm not loving basketball so much today, or lacrosse or swimming or whatever the sport is. Maybe I'm not feeling it today. And they always ask me like, so how do I, and in my head, then the self-talk starts, right? And now we're coming up with excuses. And, I always joke that it's the Matt Phillips pity party. I get all sad and my pity party, right? And,
Yeah.
but it's, what did you do like in those moments, like self-talk wise or reset wise, or, there are certain things that athletes have, but to get yourself reset in that moment, because they're always looking for tactical things. If I say this or do this, then I'll be reset. Like, how would you answer that to athletes listening now, or even the athletes you're coaching right now?
Well, it's funny you said that. And, I've dealt with that in my professional career now with life after basketball. I've interviewed for probably over 10 to 15 head coaching positions, WNBA, Division I women's, Division I men's, NBA, and even G League NBA head coaching positions. And, there came a point probably 2 interviews ago where I was just like, man, is this really for me? And I started to second guess. But then what I had to do was I had to figure out, what is my why? Like, why do I want to be a head coach? Why am I coaching? Right? Why am I playing this game that I've loved since I was little? Right? And once you figure out what your why was or is, then it makes it easier for you to bring everything back and be like, look, this is just another step, just another lesson along the way. Just more ammunition to fuel you, to teach you, to help you grow. So when you do become what you're trying to be, you'll be ready for it. And so keeping that type of mindset, staying focused, staying, driven,
Yes.
your goal, then that's what, keeps you from giving up.
Yes. Well, I think, going back to, right at the beginning, you talked also about the importance of a support system and your wife and, kids. And I'm curious, how has your wife helped you most?
Mm.
And how do you kind of just balance that now, especially being a coach, right? But how do you balance that in a relationship? And then I'm curious to jump then to like, who's one coach that you've had that has really influenced you? But I'm curious on your wife first, just that relationship, because you're busy, man. You're going all over the place. You're traveling. You're doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and I know it's tough for her because, there's probably been times throughout my 19 and plus 5 coaching where she's like, look, we just want you here, but understanding like, I got to support him. I understand what he wants and his passion. Like, and it could easily be reversed. If she was in this position, then that's how I would be, very supporting. And she's her only child. Like, she's only a child. Um, and she's had some trials and tribulations in her life where she lost both her parents. Like, both my parents are still here. And so I know for her, it probably would have been easy for her to give up. But she knows for this family, that's her purpose. That's her mission. This is what she serves to do. And that's support me and support the kids and be a rock. And she's done it, man. I don't know how, but I would not be the person I am. I would not be the coach, the player I was, had she had not been by my side for 25 plus years.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah. And
yeah,
then,
wives are amazing, aren't they? I mean, like superpowers that those left up to us males, we'd be in trouble.
At times as a coach and as a player, we're the ones that are out there on TV and being talked highly about, and you never hear the stories about the people that are truly there, that are the reason, right? And so, I got to give her as much credit and love as anyone for even getting us to this point.
Yes. It's for all you coaches listening right there, go buy your wives some flowers and say thank you, maybe. The unsung heroes for sure. Well, I think that's huge. And, when you look back at coaches you've worked with, right? You've been on multiple teams and, different lengths based on the team you were with. Who's one coach who had an impact on you, and how did, that coach influence how you practiced or played, or just how they influenced your life?
Well, the one coach that did it for me was Avery Johnson. I mean, I got to Dallas in 2004, and Avery was still like a player coach. And then halfway through the season, Don Nelson, literally, we brought it in, and he was like, okay, let's bring it in, guys. We bring it in after practice, and he just pauses. He looks at Avery, and he's like, Avery's team on 3. 1, 2, 3. It's Avery's team. And you could hear a pin drop in the gym. And we just looked. And then from that day forward, Avery coached us. And so,
really,
yeah, this was my first year in Dallas. And our first year, we went to the Western Conference semifinals. We lost to Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns. The next year, we ended up going to the NBA Finals and losing to the Miami Heat after having a 2-game lead. So throughout that time, I had come from Atlanta, a losing situation. I had 3 coaches in 4 years. And as a young player trying to play the point guard position, it was a tremendous transition for me, right? And so from day one, Avery kind of took me under his wing. First of all, he got my spirituality right. He made sure that was aligned. Then he made sure the family life was good. Then he made sure, okay, now let me teach you how to be a pro. Let me teach you how to be a leader. Let me teach you how to run a team, right? He showed me film of myself in Atlanta. These are no dudes. Like, we're not doing any of this right here. Zero tolerance, like quitting on play. Bad shot selection, how to communicate to your teammates, like those type of skills is what he taught me. Then teaching me how to prepare for a game, how to scout, how to watch film, like not just watch your highlights, but let's watch how the defense is playing you, like all that type of stuff. And this is something we do every day. Every road trip, he'd take me to breakfast and he'd have a to-do list. Like, we do our Bible study and then we go into, okay, what do we need to do and address for the team? And it was some tough love. It was some tough nights. Like, every film session, I was the star, feature film star. Like, I was right there. Dirk and I were 1A, 1B. Like, his main joke was like, okay, all right, guys, here we go. Let's watch the Dirk and Jet horror show. Here we go. Jet, look at yourself on the weak side. Like, and so we were the example. But, through all that, I learned how to be a professional. I learned how to run a team. And I would not have had the career I've had Avery not took it upon himself to mentor me and teach me not only how to be a good player, but how to be a man. And I give him all the credit in the world.
Were you at first, when he took you under his wing, intimidated by that? Or was it like, oh, this is incredible, like, let's go?
No, because you have to understand, I had great coaching in high school. Great coach. Rest in peace, rest his soul. Coach Ron Drayton. Taught me how to be a champion, won 2 state champions, taught me about work ethic, taught me how to be a leader. Then I get to college, Lute Olson taught me about sacrifice, and we ended up winning the national championship. So then I get to Atlanta, and it's like the leadership was just off a little bit. I had a Hall of Fame coach in Lenny Wilkins, Then we brought in a college coach who was Lon Kruger, who had never coached at that level. And then we had Terry Stotts, who had been a long-time assistant. All good coaches in their own right, right? But just not the stability a young player coming into this league trying to play that position needed. So then I get to
Yes.
Dallas, and I have a guy that played my position, that won a championship, and that had kind of went the journeyman route on being a pro and being a professional. So I had a great example, a great model to kind of follow, and so that made it easy for me to follow Avery.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting when you look back at coaches to see like what they taught you along the way, because it's different things. I love those examples, right, of how to be a champion, and then about sacrifice, and then how to be a professional. For the athletes listening right now, like when you talk about being a professional, it's funny. Now this came up in I was meeting with the team like 2 weeks ago, and this came up. Like when people describe you, like what do you want to say? Like they approach the game like a professional.
Mm.
And I asked them, like, what does that mean to you? Like, paint the picture, right, of what does that look like, and what actions you take, what are behaviors, things like that. When you talk about becoming a professional, and Avery teaching you to become a professional, what did that look like for you? And just like, how would you describe that to an athlete listening right now? Like, this is what it looks like when you're a professional.
Well, the first thing is being dependable, right? Being able to be counted on when you're needed, when you're needed most. Accountability is very important, like self accountability as well. You don't always want to be the guy that somebody has to tell you what to do or how to do it. You know, kind of take the initiative of doing it on your own. I think the other thing is, you know, being on time, being respectful of your teammates and of yourself. Very important. And then being selfless. Like you have to think about there's something greater than yourself, right? Obviously, some guys, to get to the level they've gotten to, there's some part of selfishness that you have to have, right?
Yes.
But then there's also, when you're talking about team, of being selflessness, and you know, all great teammates have it. And I think being a great teammate is a part of being professional. Coming in every day and doing your job, right, to the best of your ability. Even though you may feel like, oh man, I can do a little bit of this or that. No, do your job. And I think it's something I got from the great Bill Belichick is he uses that line, do your job.
Yep.
And they won so many championships. And he's one of the greatest leaders to learn from.
Absolutely. When you look at, you know, athletes looking to get to the next level, right? And we'll start with the high school athlete, right? And he or she's looking to get to the collegiate level. And then you have the collegiate athlete who's looking to get to the professional level. What advice would you give them, like, and how to make sure they're like, what should they prepare for to make that actually occur?
I think first for high school athletes getting to the next level, and I've coached high school athletes since 2009. I started my own grassroots AAU program, the Lady Jets. Along the way, we've had boys teams, but we're still going. We're about, I think we're in year 12 now.
Okay.
You know, grassroots and high school athletes. And the first thing I tell them is work ethic, and then understanding like who you are, self-awareness, like who you are. You know, you still may be evolving, but God gave you a gift. He gave you a talent. Once you figure out what that super talent is that nobody else has, or that you do better than anybody else, then that's what you bring to the table every night, and that's of value. Because there's a school, there's a home for each and every one of you. It may not be Kansas, it may not be Duke, Arizona, right? But self-awareness and evaluation of where you are in your development and what you need to work on, right, to get to where you're trying to go. So I think that's one for high school athletes. Once you get to college, that's kind of carved out for you, and now you fit into a role. How do I fit within the team aspect of it? Because all athletes that come into a college situation may have been 5-star, 4-star athletes, heavily recruited or whatnot, but now you have to figure out, how do I fit in this little puzzle called team, right? And then, okay, from there, now it's role play. What's going to be my role? Okay, let me star in that role. Now, once I get to the next level, it's even more important that you have self-awareness and self-evaluation, because now it is the cream of the crop. It's the best of the best. And so now, what do I do well? What can the coach count on me bringing to the table every single night, right? And then just do that. do that. Don't look at nobody else's. I call it cars or jewelry, but don't look at nobody else's Ferrari. Like, what are you driving over here? Like, make that Honda Accord look like a Ferrari, right? And drive it to the
Yeah.
back every day. Like, so, because there's levels. Like, everybody can't be Michael Jordan or LeBron. Like, you got to be, in my instance, Jason Terry. Like, how can you be the best version of that? And then bring
Yeah.
that to the table every single night. And there's value. And you'll have a
Yeah.
long career once you figure that out.
I love that answer because it's that, again, focus on how do I show up my best self every day
Yes.
and bring it every day as those gifts and talents. And like you talk about how you stayed at the perimeter, right? And you knew when to go in, you knew when to go for contact, but you played your game, right? Based on your skill set. And you didn't go into the game saying, I'm a 7-foot guy, like here I come. I know my skill set, I know my worth, and I'm working my behind off to maximize that potential.
And I think the biggest challenge for me was, I'm not going to sit here and act like that was easy. Like it was tough because in Atlanta, I was the highest scoring guard on the team. Like I can score 20 a night. But when I got to Dallas, I was replacing Steve Nash. So I thought in my mind. So the perception was I was brought into Dallas to replace Steve Nash. Now, if anybody knows Steve Nash, he's a pass first, pure point guard, one of the best to ever do it. So imagine that. Fitting my shoes into those big shoes, that's not going to work. So what happened? Lost my identity of who I was and who made me valuable. But again, talking to Avery Johnson every day, him coaching me, him mentoring me. It wasn't until one day I walked in his office and he said, look at this. He was looking at the stat sheet, looking at the film, and he was like, okay, 12 points, 6 assists, 5 turnovers. He was like, what are you doing? I said, man, well, I thought you wanted me to get everybody involved, kind of like Steve Nash. He said, stop right there. I'm going to stop you right there. You're Jason Terry. That's what we want to see. That's what I want out there every night. And then it done. And then that's when my game just took off and elevated. When I stopped trying to be somebody else and I started to be back who God made me. And it worked out.
That's so good. I would say it worked out. That's for sure.
Yes, sir.
I love that. What was the most challenging aspect of shifting from player to coach?
For me, it was a seamless process again because I've really been coaching since 2009 maybe. And then towards the end of my career in preparation, knowing what I want to do when I retired, I served as a player coach in Houston for 2 years. And then in Milwaukee for my final 2 years, Jason Kidd allowed me to be a part of the staff while I was still finishing up. So I wasn't playing a lot of minutes. But every day before I did my personal routine, I would go to the coaches meeting every day, 7:30 a.m. at home and on the road. And after practice. So I was heavily involved and starting to learn the little nuances of coaching. What did it entail? Like, how do you break down film? How do you communicate to the players? How do you draw up on the dry erase board? How do you take notes? How do you put a practice plan together? Like time management, all those little fine details that you need to know when you start to get into the coaching business. And then so from there, I went into management my first year when I retired because I wanted to see the business side of basketball. Once I got the tactical side, I understood, X's and O's very well. I want to know the business side of it. How do they evaluate talent? Because I knew that would help me as I coach whatever team I was about to, coach. And so from that management stop in the G League in Dallas, I ended up at Arizona for 1 year as an assistant coach. I'm sorry, while I was in Dallas coaching or assistant GM for the Legends, Texas Legends, I was also still coaching high school girls basketball. So we ended up winning the state championship with my girls team. And this team, like, if you looked at them, you'd just be like, oh, they're going to get beat by 30. But, man, I tell you what, those girls listened to every word I said, and they believed it and went out and shocked the world and ended up winning the state title. And so then the next year I was like, okay, what's the next challenge? And I ended up being an assistant coach under Sean Miller at the University of Arizona and Tommy Lloyd for about 1.5 years. and then ran into a good friend that following summer at Summer League, Calvin Booth, who was serving as the GM for the Denver Nuggets. And he said, look, I got an opportunity for you. You want to become a head coach? That's what you want? This would be a first experience. You can be our Grand Rapids Gold G League head coach. And I was like, wow, thank you for the opportunity. So, again, in preparation for where I'm at now, I had to take those steps along the way. But, a lot of people think you have to be in a field for 10 to 15 to 20 years. I mean, some people do. Me, I'm a fast learner. I'm like a sponge. I soak it up. And obviously my experience on the court has helped me to where I
Yes.
am today. And so that's what's prepared me. But did I skip steps along the way? Kind of, but not really, because I've had experiences at every single level. So, now I'm a year two at Utah as an assistant coach. It's been awesome, man. Because when you stop learning is when you stop growing and developing. And I learn something new every day. I try to, at least. And we got a good young staff. I think Will Hardy's one of the brightest basketball minds that I've ever been around. His ability to put a game plan together and then adjust in game, the ability to put players in positions to utilize their strengths in game has been phenomenal. And then I think his ability to lead, his leadership skills and quality, because a lot of guys that have trouble transitioning are guys that still do it their way, the old way. It's this way or no other. And, a lot of times, this younger generation, it just doesn't go over well with them. And we got a young team. And so I think learning that from him has really taught me a lot in 2 years under his leadership.
I think that's huge. Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll be aware of time here. I've got 2 more questions for you, if you don't mind, but let's stay on coaching for a moment. And, we talked a lot about this, like what personally motivated you, things like that, your why, getting back on that piece of it. But when you look at like having such a young team right now, how do you, and this is true of your AAU team and all these sorts of things, right? How do you view, like as a coach, how do I motivate my athletes to take some sort of action, whether to stop something or start doing something? How do you kind of walk them through that process to motivate those athletes?
You got to figure out what drives them, and then what are their goals, like individually. Like a lot of times we talk team, but you got to realize this generation of players or athletes are very self-conscious and self-centered just because of social media. Obviously, COVID had a huge part to do with that. When you were isolated and it was just you, like you didn't interact with the outside world for a long period of time. And so, understanding that, you find out what drives them and then you sync it all together and you let them know, like, look, I can get you to where you want to go if you help this team get to where it's trying to go. And you bring it all back together. And once they realize that and that you really care generally about them, because at the end of the day, you're not coaching ball, you're coaching people. And you got to have great people skills. Like, it ain't always got to be about ball. Every time I see you, every time we interact, we're talking basketball. No, I'm asking you, how's your wife doing? How's your girlfriend? How's your family? Like, all the things that we know can impact you once you step on that court, right? These are human beings. They all got lives out there that they're living. Basketball is just something they do for a small portion of the day. And so, letting them know you genuinely care about them as people allows them to go out there and perform. And you can get them to kind of run through a wall for you.
Yes. I think that's awesome. All right, last question. And I'll end this for today and then maybe chat with you for a minute after we're done. But all right. Favorite. Oh, this is a loaded one. I'm going to make you think a little bit. Favorite NBA moment and why was it so special?
Well, I'll humor you for one, and I'll give what the people really want is, like, favorite moment is when LeBron dunked on me in Boston, in the Boston Garden. Like, because now until eternity, I'll forever be remembered and I'll forever be talk of the barbershop or wherever you go. Right. So I'm good with that. Like, I truly say, like, I was playing hard. I didn't know. They're like, why'd you jump? Man, I just was in the moment. Like, you don't turn around and go, oh, yeah, I'm about to try to block LeBron's dunk. I didn't even know he was there. He was there. They ripped me. They stole the ball from me. I was trying to get it back. And then next thing you know, I'm laying on my back. right?
Yes.
So it was crazy, but that was a crazy moment. But probably my greatest moment was after we won the NBA championship. Uh, my mother and father shared a moment on the stage as they were giving us the trophy, and I had never seen them have an interaction like that ever in my life. Growing up as a child, even as I graduated from high school, winning a championship in college, but in that particular moment, they hugged and they shared a moment, and I was able to catch it and see it. Like maybe they had done it before, since they hadn't been together, but in that moment, seeing my mother and father embrace and hug each other, that meant a lot to me. Um, yeah, it almost chokes me up now that I say it, but that was one of those moments because I knew it was a moment where I directly had impact on because if we didn't win, that moment never happens, and so it was just like wow, I didn't know I could have that type of impact on someone and two people that really didn't really talk or like each other to that moment. So that was huge,
That's
huge.
amazing. That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time,
Yep.
Jet. I mean, I just truly enjoyed the conversation. I could talk to you for hours, and I know you got a life and
Yep.
family and all that stuff. So, but maybe I'll have you on for round two one of these days, or we'll do a live version. I'll head down to wherever you're traveling to, or Phoenix, or wherever, and we can sit and have a coffee and chat and do all that stuff too. But I just can't thank you enough for the time today.
No, anytime, man. And I'm gonna steal one from you, man. I see the sign in the back. And this is to all the listeners out there, to all the kids that may be listening, potential NBA, college, wherever you're at in your life, in your profession, just keep going. Just keep going.
Just keep going. Thank you, everyone, for watching this interview today. Go check out the Jet. Go follow him, watch him. Go, stalk him in an NBA game. Say, hey, I listened to your interview, man. I loved it. This is what I took away from it.
Yes,
I mean, share some of your learnings with Jet. He wants to hear it. And it's such a pleasure to have him with me today. So, hey, stay tuned for our next interview. I appreciate your time taking us with us today as well. And we'll see you on the next interview series.